Welcome to History What If, where we question the events that already happened. What really could have happened? Could we have changed the outcome? Before we begin, everything you're about to hear is based on historical research, facts, and records. The what-if scenarios are my own opinion and interpretation of events, designed to make you think, question, and explore history differently. This is not the official historical record. This is history, through a different lens. Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles, January 6, 2025. A beautiful neighborhood on the western edge of the city. Expensive homes, ocean views, tree-lined streets, celebrities, families, people who had lived there for decades. A community that looked, on January 6th, exactly like it always had. This is what it looked like on January 9th. 3 days. That is how long it took. January 7th, 2025, 10:30 in the morning. A fire ignited in Pacific Palisades on the west side of the city. This became the Palisades Fire. Within hours, a second fire broke out near Altadena in the east, the Eaton Fire. By nightfall, Los Angeles was fighting on two fronts simultaneously, in the worst possible conditions imaginable. The conditions that day were, in the most precise meteorological terms, absolutely catastrophic. Santa Ana winds were hitting 50 to 100 miles per hour in some areas. That is hurricane-force wind. Driving fire through dry vegetation at speeds nobody could outrun. Since July 2024, 6 months, downtown Los Angeles had received just 1/5 of an inch of rain. 1/5 of an inch. In a city that normally gets several inches by January. This was the second driest period in nearly 150 years of record keeping. The vegetation was not just dry, it was tender, it was waiting. Let's talk about what those fires did, because the numbers are staggering. 57,529 acres burned. That is more than double the size of Manhattan Island. 18,189 structures destroyed or damaged. Homes, businesses, schools, churches, entire neighborhoods. Gone. 200,000 people forced to evacuate. 32 confirmed deaths. The two biggest fires were the Palisades and the Eaton. The Palisades Fire, 23,448 acres. 6,837 structures destroyed. 12 deaths. $25 billion in damage. The second most destructive fire in California history. The Eaton Fire. 14,021 acres. 9,418 structures destroyed. 19 deaths, $27.5 billion in damage. The third most destructive fire in California history. Now, here is where the what if begins. Because this disaster, as devastating as it was, had some very specific, very documented, very infuriating contributing factors. Let's go through them. False number 1. 1 month before the fires, in December 2024, the city of Los Angeles cut more than $17 million from the LA Fire Department budget. $17 million. 1 month before the worst wildfire disaster in the city's history. LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley didn't mince words afterward. She said, and I'm quoting directly, "Since day one, this is my third budget. We're still understaffed, we're still under-resourced, and we're still underfunded. Any budget cut is going to impact our ability to provide service. That is a ground truth." She had been saying it for 3 years, 3 budgets, 3 times, understaffed, under-resourced, underfunded, screaming into a budget committee. The budget committee nodded, and then cut the budget anyway. False number 2. The hydrants ran out of water. On the morning of January 8th, within 7 hours of the Palisades Fire igniting, one of the 3 million-gallon water tanks serving the neighborhood had been bled completely dry. The system was experiencing 4 times its normal water demand for 15 straight hours. The elevated tanks could not be refilled fast enough. The hydrants ran dry. Firefighters arrived at hydrants and found nothing. Turned the valve. Nothing came out. Houses burning. Hydrants dry. The CEO of the LA Department of Water and Power said, "We pushed the system to the extreme." Now, to be fair, fire hydrants are not designed to fight massive urban wildfires. They are built for routine structure fires. A single burning building. A contained incident. Not 14 simultaneous wildfires across a major city in hurricane-force winds. The system was built for a different world. The problem is, The world changed, the system didn't. False number 3. The Palisades Fire may have been entirely preventable. Here's what investigators found. On January 1st, 6 days before the Palisades Fire, a smaller fire called the Lockman Fire broke out in the same area. It was contained, stamped out, declared controlled. The firefighters left. 6 days later, in exactly the same location, the Palisades Fire ignited. Investigators believe the Lockman Fire may have rekindled, that it was never fully extinguished, that the embers were still there, waiting for the wind. An independent investigation concluded, if the Palisades Fire was caused by LAFD's failure to properly monitor the Lockman Fire, then the Palisades Fire was entirely preventable. The largest and most destructive fire of the disaster. Entirely preventable. And here is the part that will sound very familiar to anyone who watched our Titanic video. The warnings existed. They had existed for years. Climate scientists had been warning for decades that California's wildfire risk was increasing dramatically, that the combination of drought, heat, and Santa Ana winds was creating conditions that would eventually overwhelm any city's ability to respond, that the wildland-urban interface, where houses meet wilderness, was an extreme risk zone that needed extreme preparation. The Federation of American Scientists had recommended reforms. The Government Accountability Office had recommended reforms. Fire chiefs had requested more funding. Water engineers had noted the system's limitations. All of it documented, all of it available. None of it acted on with the urgency it required. Until January 7th, 2025, when urgency arrived on its own. Before we get to the what if, this needs to be said clearly. 32 people died. 200,000 people lost their homes or were forced to flee them. Entire neighborhoods that had existed for generations. Communities with history, with memories, with the kind of roots that take decades to grow, were gone in hours. The fires did not discriminate. Expensive homes in Pacific Palisades, modest homes in Altadena, multi-generational family properties, starter homes, retirement homes. All of it measured now in ash and insurance claims, and the particular grief of people who drove home and found there was no home to drive to. That is the reality underneath every what if we ask today. So, what if things had gone differently? What if 3 specific things had been handled better? 1. The $17 million budget cut never happens. The LA Fire Department gets the staffing and resources its chief had been requesting for 3 years. More firefighters, more equipment, faster initial response. 2. The Lockman Fire is properly monitored after containment. Thermal imaging is used to confirm full extinguishment. The embers are found, extinguished properly. The Palisades Fire never starts. 3. The water infrastructure had been upgraded to handle extreme wildfire scenarios. The tanks are larger. The system is built for the world it now faces, not the world of 50 years ago. In that scenario, the Eaton Fire still starts. The cause of the Eaton Fire, faulty power lines of Southern California Edison, is separate and harder to have prevented on that timeline. But the Palisades Fire, the largest and most destructive of the two, that one had a specific, identifiable, potentially preventable cause. A fire that was contained but not confirmed extinguished. An ember that nobody checked for. Without the Palisades Fire opening a second massive front, the firefighting resources available for the Eaton Fire are dramatically greater. The response is faster, the containment earlier, the damage still severe. The Eaton Fire was a disaster in itself, but without the Palisades Fire burning simultaneously, fewer homes, fewer deaths, a different outcome. After the fires, California did what it always does after a disaster of this magnitude. It investigated, it reported, it promised change. Governor Newsom ordered an independent investigation into the hydrant failures. The California Governor's Office commissioned an independent fire safety timeline report. Investigations into Southern California Edison's role in the Eaton Fire were launched. Proposed changes included larger emergency water reserves, mandatory thermal imaging checks on all contained fires during red flag weather events, rebuilding the fire department to the staffing levels its chief had been requesting for years, and holding utility companies to higher standards of equipment maintenance in high fire risk zones. Were these changes possible before January 2025? Yes, all of them. Were they in place before January 2025? No. Los Angeles is still there. The city rebuilt after Northridge, after previous fires, after earthquakes and floods and every disaster that a city built at the edge of a desert next to a fault line in a state of permanent fire risk has faced over the decades. It will rebuild again. What happened in January 2025 was not inevitable. It was the collision of natural forces and human failures, of climate change accelerating faster than infrastructure adapted, of budgets cut in the wrong places at the wrong moment, of a fire declared contained before it truly was. Inevitable. It was the collision of natural forces and human failures, of climate change accelerating faster than infrastructure adapted, of budgets cut in the wrong places at the wrong moment, of a fire declared contained before it truly was. If this video made you think, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. What do you think could have been different? This is History What If, and I'll see you in the next one.